Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In. We're brought to you by Nike Wrestling. Go to AthletePS.com for all of your Nike gear. Resilite, the mat company. Get a hold of Matt Gilbert over there and get your wall mats, your plyometric boxes, and your lightweight or your classic mats. And Pure and Clean Sports, Ryan Freeman, Jake Buckner, two of the best people in the business, along with another one of the best guys in the business, my guy, Grant Turner. I like the two-tone, GT, what you got on today. Is that a new piece out or is that old retro?
Brand new this year, but yeah, just rocking a little Grandview wrestling today on the pod. So
looking good as usual. The hair's on point as usual.
Well, between the David, Mark, and Grant show, I am the leader in the clubhouse with hair count.
That is correct. By the way, I won the contest because neither one of you idiots sent me your picks. So
I was a little bit busy with the Missouri Valley Open or Missouri Valley Invite.
For people that don't know, I think everybody knows this, but Grant and I are friends off the air. And I call him about something Friday. He goes, Missouri just got a little bit greater. The Grandview fan just crossed the state border, which you actually said with a straight face, which was absolutely stuck the landing on it. So how was the tournament?
It was good. Once again, that is a great showcase of the NAI, the teams that all show up. It's been a great one. The weather was a big factor in some of the schools not being able to attend. For anybody that was kind of underneath a rock for the past weekend, the kind of whole middle part of the country got hit with a ginormous snowstorm and like tons of like cold weather. So like basically running away from the storm and getting back to Iowa was a huge part. So
it's not very often you can say you left Missouri to go to Iowa for better weather.
And it was warmer. It was warmer up north, which was crazy.
It's absurd.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So I was Friday night, actually went in Thursday night, went to the Mizzou Oklahoma State duel, and we'll get to that, and then called the Stanford duel against Virginia on Saturday afternoon. Drove back, forgot to put my four-wheel drive on, did a 360 getting onto the ramp, then put my four-wheel drive on and didn't have an incident for the next 2 hours and 45 minutes. So all you people out there with the four-wheel drive that don't use it all the time, make sure you lock that sucker in before you go. Two duels really that kind of everyone focused on over the weekend, GT. Nebraska wrestled Iowa, and then Nebraska wrestled Ohio State. And both the duels are interesting. I'm going to pull it up. Did you get a chance to watch either one of them?
Yeah, I watched the Nebraska-Iowa duel. We were done with the tournament, so we were able to put it on the TV or on our phones and be able to watch a lot of that. So got a chance to pretty much watch the entire duel together, which was really awesome. Nebraska always shells out and puts on a great show. So, and once again, the Big Ten Network does a great job with production. So I got a chance to watch pretty much the entirety of the duel. So
just your initial thoughts on there. I thought that, first of all, I'll let you go first, but Nebraska sold, they sold out again, which was great for them. So what were your overall thoughts on the Nebraska duel? Let me pull up the box score here real quick. Joey Cruz beat Alan Kaler 4-2. Ayala over Van D 12-6. Brock Hardy over Nasir Bailey 1-0 in a controversial match. Ryder Block pretty much decides the duel, GT, against Chance Lamer with a fall at 5 minutes and 51 seconds. Antrell beats Jordan Williams on a stalling call in overtime 2-1. Caliendo, as we said on the air, bounced back against Araujo big time, 14-4. Kennedy with that Johnny Hendricks short sit to win in overtime tiebreakers over Minto 2-1. Gabe Arnold, the Swiss Army knife of Iowa, steps in, beats Silas Allred 4-1. Cam McDaniel tech fall over Brody Sampson, and Ferrari beats Kueter 4-1.
There's I would say probably in that list, probably some of the matches that I thought would be my highlights. One, Drake Ayala with a great victory over Van D. Looked a little bit more like himself in that duel. Still, once again, went out and got taken down, I think, right away. If you want to talk about another great match too, was the Jordan Williams Antrell Taylor match.
Yes.
I was very impressed by both of those guys. Very, very excited about that type of thing. Their match was just really, really fun to watch. We had an argument at the dinner table about the stall call out of bounds. Once again, it was people on both sides of the argument. Was it stalling? Was it not stalling? Was he playing the edge? Was he just trying to wrestle? Was he just on his all fours, basically just, and then gets called for it? That was a great discussion.
Which side of the argument were you on, GT?
I was on the side of kind of let them wrestle. I wasn't necessarily, I could see it being called stalling. It's probably the right call. I probably wouldn't have called it, but I think there was an opportunity for Jordan to like basically circle back in a little bit more, and he didn't. So I think that's kind of what caught him. I just hate to see matches go that way, but once again, you got to make the call and make the call.
It's the argument like in football, like if it's holding in the first quarter, it's holding in the fourth quarter. It was such a weird call. It was a weird circumstance that generated the decision because Jordan kind of went out of bounds, like falling down on his belly, crawling backwards, but you couldn't tell if it almost looked like he slipped a little bit.
Well, and that was kind of the deal, is that like they were in such tight scrambles, they were kind of like sliding around a little bit or like getting out of positions and kind of like, almost like wizard kicking or like getting out of positions in order to like kind of square up. It was a great intense match.
Let me ask you about Hardy Bailey, right? So Hardy wins 1-0, and the story of that, the talk of that match was the no takedown call on the edge of the mat. One of the things I do miss about coaching is traveling with a bunch of people that are as crazy about wrestling as I am. So what was the reaction there? I mean, assuming most of you guys are Iowa fans, being in Iowa, but like, did you think it was a takedown? It looked like it was inbound. Why was it not overturned? Just kind of what was the consensus on your guys' end there?
Well, I think there was, once again, I think as you well know, when you're on a coaching staff and, basically we all kind of were sitting around, like some people just take the opposite side of the argument just to cause trouble. And just to see like how you get worked up. And once again, if you're coaching with people that are passionate about wrestling, they can be passionate about specific calls. So yeah. I think it's, you take both into consideration. Once again, I think as a coaching staff from the state of Iowa, we're probably pretty equipped to like just talk through regular wrestling. I don't think necessarily we're a fan of either of them, but I think you're a fan of wrestling first. And once again, you have some personal relationships with some of those guys and know them personally. But I thought, I thought that match was going to be a little bit more wide open than it was. I thought it was a very tactical, like slowed pace down type match.
Yeah. This bleeds into the other duel, but I feel like Brock Hardy is going backwards this year. And he's a really good wrestler. He could surprise me and make the finals, but I would be shocked if he beat Vega or if he beat Mendez after this weekend. And it felt like he was like, I felt like Mendez was tier 1 until Vega proves differently. Vega's tier 2, Hardy's tier 3, and everybody else was tier 4. I think there's a couple other people in the tier with Brock Hardy, and it might just be, he's older. He did a mission. We've talked about this before. College wrestling should not be a 6 or 7 year endeavor for a lot of people. So the other match that I think is low-key underrated, GT, was 49. Okay, that's the duel. All right, Iowa wins by 8. And that match is tied when Ryder Block goes and pins Chance Lamer. Okay?
Yep.
So, it's a 9-point swing. Just do the math for people. If Iowa doesn't get the pin, they go from 22 to 16. Nebraska goes from 14 to 17, and they win the duel. And I think that's what I had it picked was 17-16. So, I mean, I think Ryder Block's wrestling better than more people are giving him credit for. He took Van Ness down, and he had a chance to take him down again in that seatbelt and didn't the week before. And 49 might be the most wide open weight in America, man. Like, I guess we can bring it up now, but Van Ness was – this has to be the most absurd real-life story of the weekend. Carter Young is beating Shane Van Ness 7-1. Van Ness, the final score is Van Ness 32, Carter Young 15. It's a video game. Like, I haven't seen the clip yet. I haven't called Clemson yet, but Carter Young, either took him down twice or put him on his back. That's the only way to get to 7-1. Okay. I don't know. There had to probably be a stalling point or two in there on the backside, but he had to get 7-8 takedowns. He could have got 10. And here's what's interesting about that real quick, but Carter Young is probably going to get in better shape. I mean, he just came off the shelf, you know. And the other side is, well, Van Ness probably isn't going to get down 7-1. And this is the second time Van Ness has done this to a Maryland guy. He did it to Ethan Miller at Nationals. He was losing 9-1 in the third period and ran him down. So, I mean, I don't think Van Ness can graduate soon enough for Alex Clemson. Like, he's probably got flashbacks of that guy. But I also think it bodes very well for Carter Young. If you can go up 7-1 on Van Ness, and all you got to do is just get more mat time, getting in postseason shape, it kind of shows you can go with anybody, right?
Yeah, I think, once again, I think we've talked about this kind of all season, that 149 is the most wide open weight class. I mean, we all know that Shane Van Ness is probably the top of the pile just because he is who he is. But I think that there's a lot of opportunities for these guys to, like, kind of shake this weight class up a bit. I think there's also with the scoring being what it is with the 3-point takedown that has been, like, you look at some of these other scores now and it's, you know, like 7-1 after one exchange. Like, that's just one big move or a takedown and all the way to their back. Like, all of a sudden it's in a crazy, crazy situation, but it's really not that crazy of a situation. It just looks like that because we've been conditioned to be like, you know, 3-2 match is close. Still is.
Right. 3-2 is now 4-2.
Right. And 7-6 is just as, you know, it's just like, okay, well, that you can get there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, once again, I want to kind of stay on the Iowa-Nebraska duel, and then I think we definitely get to, you know, some of the Nebraska-Ohio State duel. Gabe Arnold showing up in a big way for the Hawks.
Yes.
Once again, the utility knife of the program, as it has he been for the past couple of years, kind of in and out of the lineup, and then, you know, all of a sudden just knocks off people periodically, right?
Over at Iowa State a couple years ago.
Yep.
The same thing, bumped him up to 84 and won a one takedown match because we were both there.
Yep.
And Iowa State was supposed to win that duel on paper, and he gets it done again. I mean, for a guy that doesn't get as many opportunities as a regular starter does all the time, he shows up. And, you know, I think Gabe Arnold deserves some flowers on that from beating, you know, somebody like Silas Allred, who is, you know, Big Ten champion. You know, so it's not like 7 in the country.
You know, he's not someone to, like, overlook, and he's like he's a stud, right? So
yeah.
And I, you know, once again, I think as far as, you know, the media is concerned, I thought it was really cool to see the Ferrari Kueter end of the match. You know, you have to address it. It's something that I think was a different result of post-win AJ Ferrari celebrations. So it was really cool to see, once again, another top 10 battle between heavyweight candidates in that duel. But just thought it was a class act, as you could see it on TV. Once again, a lot of respect for both AJ and Ben. So got to throw their first names out there because first name Mark is no longer here. So I just wanted to make sure that we address
that. Then get Big Tone Cassiope into the podcast somehow. Yeah,
had to. But
sure.
Once again, these are two great programs. I think, Nebraska had a tremendous team run last year. I think they're a really, really good team this year. I just kind of want to see what their postseason run looks like, because they could do some damage. They didn't necessarily look on top of their game against Iowa, but if we look at the Ohio State results, bounce back pretty dang good.
Yeah, let's pull that up. So Ohio State beats Nebraska 17-16. I'm waiting for this track wrestling thing to stop spinning here. So Nick Bouzakis. Okay, let's talk about. Let me read the things. I'll give you my takes and then get out of the way. Bouzakis 16-4 over Lordson. Davino 7-2 over Van D. Mendez 14-3 over Hardy. Ethan Stiles over Lamer in overtime 6-3. Antrell 11-3 over the freshman Maddox Shaw. Araujo 1-0 over Ethan Burden. Minto in overtime over Karchla 4-1. Allred over Fishback 2-1 in tie breaks. Cam McDaniel over Luke Diag 9-6 at the buzzer. Feldman over Ferrari in overtime. I'm going to give you my quick takes. 25. Bouzakis is a monster, but he was up by a major at the end of the first period. Did not seem to have a lot of juice in the third period. Davino over Van D. He is so good at that little short dump, Kelly, whatever you want to call it, series. You got to be really careful down blocking that guy. Jesse Mendez might be the leader in the clubhouse for the Hodge. I haven't spent a ton of time looking at it, but the quality of wins he has, and you're starting to split hairs when you go to Messenbrink and Levi and these other guys, but his resume is really, really good. Plus, they tend to give it to guys who are seniors over guys that have a year left. Lamer, tough weekend, was in the match at Iowa at 49, obviously, and with who we're just talking about, and then loses in Styles in overtime. Antrell. So Ohio State wrestled backups at 57-65. Minto gets the overtime win over Karchla. So when we talk about the rankings, I think Minto's dangerous to make the semis, but he could also lose to Karchla, and he could also lose to PK like he did. Allred over Fishback was a good bounce back win. McDaniel over Giag. The Feldman Ferrari match. It was a very typical Ferrari match, except there was a stall call on top. They threw the brick and did not overturn it. Jamie George was the ref. He did a ton of JUCO, good referee. It didn't look like there was a 5 count there, but it changed Ferrari's whole strategy. He couldn't try to get riding time, and then he kind of just let Feldman get to a really shallow underhook, and he just did like a whip over to the leg, and Ferrari has this crazy flexibility, but in this one position, he was just like a really strong guy that just tipped over and lost the match. So, and I apologize for people listening. I'm trying to battle through a little head cold here, a little sore throat, but anyway, go ahead, GT.
No, I think, once again, with Ohio State basically wrestling a couple of different backups, you didn't get to see the matchup of basically Antrell versus Brandon Cannon. They're going to see that at the Big Tens if they end up meeting each other there. I think that could have been probably one of the most anticipated matches, other than like the Mendez Hardy or AJ versus Feldman. But like this, you could argue like any of these matchups that were in the top 10, like a Davino Van Ness, Silas Allred, Fishback, another battle of top 10 guys. Minto beating Karchla, we talked about a little bit. Like if you look at him, I'm going to use that one as an example.
Yeah.
So at that specific weight class, I think it's 174, we're basically talking about Kennedy, Minto, and Karchla being 4, 5, 6, which is a tremendous look of where you wind up, like point-wise.
Yeah.
If you're the 4, 5, then you're basically working your way towards Levi Haynes, which is another Big Ten guy which you're going to see in the duel. You're going to see him at the championship, and you're going to maybe see him in the semifinals, right? If you look at 74, you go.
I got the rankings here in front of me if it helps you.
No, I got to pull up here as well, but like probably Simon Maurice is going to run from the rest of, basically win out. win his conference, probably going to be the number 2 seed. Then you're basically looking at either an ACC champ, probably the Big Ten champ will get the 3 seed.
Big Ten champ will be Haynes. He'll get the 1. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, whatever. Not necessarily Big Ten champ, but like
Big Ten runner up.
Because I don't see Facundo having enough, I would say, horsepower in order to get all the way to the 3 in the nation.
No way.
So we're talking about potentially whoever gets second or makes it to the finals of the Big Ten championship being potentially the 3 seed at the national tournament. You want that bout, right? So, but then it comes into like some of the seeding as well to be at the Big Ten championship because you want to wind up not wrestling Levi Haynes in the semifinals and getting 3rd, and then all of a sudden there's a whole bunch of strategy to that. But what a weekend for that weight class specifically, with humongous postseason ramifications for those wins. PK knocking off Minto then knocking off Karchla. Like a little bit of like strategic placement on where those guys wind up at the Big Ten championship.
Yeah.
And if there's a wild thing that could happen, if Levi Haynes ever were to get beat at the Big Tens, then you're thinking about Ruiz basically going to the 1 and then Big Ten champ and probably Levi Haynes on the bottom. Kind of shifts up a lot of different things. It was a crazy weekend for that specific weight class at 174 with humongous postseason ramifications for those guys beating each other and kind of being in the same spot.
Yeah, and just so people know, Matty Singleton is 12-1. His lone loss is to Karchla. You and I were Matt's side when he pinned Facundo because we were standing right next to Fretwell.
Yep.
And Singleton is Fretwell's guy. And you and I are very good at keeping our hands in our pockets and being neutral about everything when we know there's people watching us. Fretwell deservedly so went crazy, and he should. That's his guy. But Singleton's another guy. If he gets a conference title, where he's going to suffer is common opponents, because like I have his wrestle stat up here. Karchel's the highest ranked guy he had, then Facundo, then Sima, then Lenny Pinto. So his strength of schedule is not great. So
Lorenzo Norman is out for the year.
Yeah.
With a conference opponent.
Yeah.
I mean, and we all know that guy had he could have been really good this year, but just, basically injuries kind of caught up to him, and he's going to be redshirting this year. But like, you're looking at the ACC, like, I don't see anybody that's even remotely close.
That's right.
To knocking him off for a conference title. So you're going to have a conference champion, potentially Singleton, with, basically what, 1 loss on the year?
Yeah, but he's going to be handcuffed to Karchla. That's his problem. Because he's going to, on the head-to-head and common opponents, he's going to be behind Karchla. And that's what he can end up being the 6th seed, which is how they have it now at Intermat. They have Kennedy over Minto. Kennedy beat Minto. Minto beat Karchla. Karchla beat Singleton. That's how they have it. And that's a ranker's dream because it's the easiest thing to defend. When Mark and I were doing like, all right, let's just do this and get to the next guy. Because it's when you're trying to rank 330 guys, it is not fun. Like, I think I got Mark almost divorced, like God bless his wife, literally, because every Sunday night. So that's a lot to take on. A couple other things. Just, I went to I went to the duel Friday night, Mizzou and Oklahoma State.
Yep.
First of all, thank you, Mizzou, for the hospitality. We got 3rd row, 50-yard line. Couldn't have been any better. That was one of the weirdest duels I've been to. So, first of all, it's in the Hearn Center when I wrestled was the state tournament. No jokes, please, on the years. Okay.
We can play that game. You brought it on air, so like
they got tablets hanging up there. Not iPads, literal tablets. No, but like they had the banners hanging of all the top 10 finishes. And it reminded me when Ryan Smith took over, the other Big 8 schools back then would send backups to wrestle Mizzou. And then Mizzou got so good they had at one point beaten Oklahoma State 4 out of 7 years. Oklahoma State won that duel. I think it was 32-3. It was something to 3. Okay. The only guy that won was Aiden Sinclair. He got one takedown in the third period. He's the only guy to get a takedown in the duel for Mizzou, GT. Only guy. And I mean, the energy in that place is normally off the charts. And it was just so, they took the air out of the building. And it's kind of like, all right, are you going to be super? The argument I would make if I'm supporting Mizzou is this. The Waiter, they could All-American. Cam Steed lost on 2 stalling calls, and they were both good calls. Like, he's got to be in the center more. Like, it's just, but that's a fairly correctable thing, right? Like, if I'm older than you, if I'm coaching you and you lose because you're playing the edge too much, and you're a kid that wants to win, if I point that out to you, you probably get it fixed by Tuesday. Sinclair found a way to win against a guy that just tried to keep it close. Evan Bates, it's 1-0 in the third period. He's got to get out in a minute 9 and didn't. I mean, I don't know who Mizzou has that's really an All-American threat besides those two, legitimately. Mendoza wrestled tough. He wrestled instead of Edmond. He lost 1 takedown to none to Swiderski. And this is the difference. He got 2 stalling points, but it's not enough because it's a 3-point takedown. You know, they traded escapes. So it was 4-3 instead of the old school would have been 3-3. If you're Oklahoma State, and I don't have all these scores in front of me, but Spratley looked good. Jax looked great. Sergio Vega cradled up Easton Hilton and pinned him. But after that, the matches were really close for the most part. Swiderski by 1 takedown. Rabideau 1 takedown over Teague Travis on a go behind. Rabideau didn't shoot the whole match. Lockett 1 takedown. And Conway had an almost takedown. They lost on the brick. Facundo 0 takedowns. 84 Ryder 0 takedowns. Merrill 1 takedown. Doucette 1 takedown. So it's weird. As much as you are like, man, they killed them. I don't know how many of these 1 takedown matches you can pull off in a row, and that's what you have to do to place the Nationals. Weird follow-up to this, but on Sunday, Brian Smith got his 350th win at Mizzou. I'm very partial to Brian Smith in Missouri because I live here. They have made Missouri a program to be proud of, or he has. He has mentored a ton of coaches. If you look at his coaching tree, it is fantastic. So congratulations to him. Brand's got his 300th win, and Dresser got his 100th win at Iowa State. Dresser got way more than 100 wins. Let's get that out there. You have Virginia Tech wins and high school wins. That guy probably got, like my dad, like 8,227 wins or something. But 3 pretty big landmarks. So if you want to talk about those coaching accomplishments or Oklahoma State, Mizzou, whatever you want to say there.
Well, I think, once again, Brian Smith has been an institution for Missouri wrestling and has been for a very long time. They've had Big 12 transition to the MAC, back to the Big 12. Like, he's been through that entire process, right? Then also being a part of the SEC as an institution and keeping wrestling and keeping all of that stuff relevant for their athletic department. Huge fan of Brian Smith. He's been a great guy, been a great coach for a long time. What an accomplishment. 350 is bananas. To Tom Brands having his 300th dual win. Once again, a legendary coaching career, includes the national titles, and that's just, to be at a location and to have that amount of success is one for the history books for the program. Also, being a part of potentially one of the greatest coaching tenures of all time, and Gable being at that institution, to have somebody that comes in with 300 dual wins as well. Another great established coach at that location. Once again, to your point, Kevin Dresser, 100 dual wins at Iowa State, which puts him 4th all time. I saw the post about that, behind,
Harold Nichols, sure.
Nichols and, Bobby Douglas and, all those guys. So it's
Jim Gibbons, probably. Maybe not. I don't know how long Gibbons was there, but yeah.
I think it was I don't know how to say his name, Hugo Optic or
Yeah, we'll see that. We'll go with that.
But I think we don't give necessarily maybe flowers to the coaching staffs that have like been around for that long in order to achieve those results.
Yeah.
Like, let's say on average you wrestle what 20 duels a year.
Yeah, maybe 15 to 20 for sure.
So even if you go like 18-2 every year for however many years, it's craziness.
Yeah.
So to put that in perspective, just to kind of keep that in the frame of mind, is let's say you even wrestle 25 or 30 duels a year. Winning 25 duels a year and staying on that tenure, especially within those conferences that those guys wrestle in, you're having some tough times keeping that success for a long time.
Well, and Brian Smith had a losing record the first couple of years because he had to build that program up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for the Oklahoma State team wrestling at Mizzou, I think Mizzou is probably probably either the third or fourth best team in the Big 12 right now, behind probably Oklahoma State, Iowa State. I'd probably put Mizzou in that category of like maybe the 3, 4, 5, 6. You could probably argue about some other teams. Northern Iowa's a little bit further down, but due to injury. But you're going to see Oklahoma State versus Northern Iowa and Iowa State this upcoming weekend, Friday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Which the duel of the weekend is going to be Oklahoma State, Iowa State. That's another top 10 battle for the conference title duel. That's got, I think every single match is ranked opponents.
Yes.
And humongous seeding potential outcomes on that, and then national seeding outcomes. You're going to have Jax's first really tough out in Frost, who's a top 3 guy.
And just beat Serrano, by the way.
And just beat Serrano in their duel. But you're going to get some really, really good matchups in that duel. Dean's going to get a shot at Ryder. You're going to have, MJ versus Facundo, which could, move some of those guys up and down. You're going to get let
me mention these you keep going. I'm going to pull that matchup up. I don't know if you'll be on with us Thursday, but keep going. You're doing great. I'm just going to pull up these matchups. Yeah,
so you're going to get a former teammates wrestling each other in Frost and Swiderski at 49. That's going to be an amazing match. There's going to be fireworks there. If 141, you're going to get Vega, Echemendia.
Here's the matchups: Spratley, Poulin, Forrest, Frost, Vega, Echemendia, Swiderski, Frost, Robideau, Zerbin, Lockett, Uten, Facundo, Gaitan, Ryder, Isaac Dean, Cody Merrill, Elam, Doucette, Bastida. And by the way, it's 6-4 Oklahoma State by the rankings. Okay, like Spratley's favored, Spratley's favored, Vega's favored, Robideau's favored, Lockett, Facundo, Ryder. But like Vega's 2/4, Robideau 7/8, Ryder's 8/12, and then the ones that Iowa State's favored, Frost is 3/9 over Jax, but I mean Jax hasn't a chance to wrestle anybody. Frost is 6/10 over Swiderski, Elam's 2/7, Bastida's 1/6. This is going to be a fascinating duel to watch and to pick, like you said.
So many postseason implications going into the Big 12 conference tournament and the NCAA tournament for these guys.
100%. Absolutely.
It's going to be electric because it's in Gallagher. It's going to be a freaking night. It's going to be a really, really cool duel. It's going to be just a really great night of collegiate wrestling. But I'm excited about kind of the run that both those teams can go on, because they both are kind of trying to vie for a trophy in that kind of that if they can put together a really good national tournament, they could steal a couple of trophies there, both those teams.
I think you're 100% right. So we'll jump over to the Intermat team scores this week. Penn State 150, Ohio State 117.5, Iowa State 84, Oklahoma State 79, Nebraska 68, Iowa 65, and then there's a three-way log jam, 48, 47.5, 47, North Carolina State, Lehigh, Cornell. I was talking to Mark the other day, and I go, I think the Sox top 6 teams are set. I don't see anybody cracking those top 6. Like, they would have to really screw up, and somebody would have to wrestle way over their head, GT. And I think without Endine, I feel like if I had to pick the order right now, I would pick Penn State 1, Ohio State 2. You could convince me Oklahoma State or Iowa State are going to be 3/4 either way. Because the argument for Oklahoma State being 3 is Jackson's ranked 9th. Come on, he's going to place. But they have a bunch of guys. They have a bunch of guys ranked that have never placed at nationals. That's the big thing about Oklahoma State, right? Like Jackson's never placed, Vega's never placed, Rabideau's never placed, Lockett's never placed, Ryder's never placed, Facundo's never placed, Doucette's never placed. Merrill, 8 of their 10 guys have never placed at nationals, and they're 6 or 7 of those guys are ranked in the top 8. Kind of hard to believe they're going to just do that well, and a couple of them are ranked super high. I mean, like, if we believe Lockett is not going to beat Messenbrink, then he's at his ceiling of rankings. Vega, if we say we don't think he'll beat Mendez, then he's at his ceiling. So that's the argument on why Oklahoma State could fall back. The argument for Iowa State being as good as they are is Poulin's not ranked to place, and he could place. Zerbin's right on the cusp, and he could. Isaac Dean's been a blood round guy, and we think for sure they have 2 finalists in Bastida and Elam. And you mentioned how these things impact seeding. You absolutely want to be on the bottom half of the bracket at 141. I feel like Echemendia and Vega are going to wrestle 3 times in the next 7 weeks. Dual, Big 12 finals, NCAA semis. Because I think they're going to be the 2-3 seed. And I'm fascinated by that matchup because Vega is like this tall, lanky, slinky kid who's always smiling. He's like the baby-faced assassin. He got up after he cradled Hilton like he just stole a couple cookies out of the jar, looked over in the corner. But, like, if he gets you to take the shot he wants you to take, it's over. I feel like Echemendia's, like, I think he's 26 years old, and he's got husband strength now and maybe dad strength. And, like, he might just go right into him and pick him up. And if he can, that's the question. Can he get his feet off the mat? Because he's going to attack the body. And Vega's so tall. But he's not going to dive on ankles and roll around with him. If he's killing him, does Vega pick top? Because that's a big difference maker. You know, Echemendia's gotten better on bottom, but Vega's a lead on top, especially for a true freshman. Those kind of matchups, we'll probably hopefully do a pod on that on Thursday because there's a bunch of good duels to pick this weekend. But I'm fascinated by those as well.
Well, I think the other thing that I think of when we think about 141 with the postseason implications of the duel that we've just described is the Oklahoma State-Iowa State one. We talked about Brock Hardy, but the one guy leaking in the shadows is Luke Stanich.
That's right.
And Luke Stanich could have an undefeated year, and he could sneak into a 2 or a 3 because, you know, he's kind of in a conference now. He's got some duels upcoming that, you know, he has to do well about, but, you know, basically he's going to be in the driver's seat to potentially knock off one of those potential seeds and force some of those guys to the top half of the bracket.
Yep. I'm pulling up their schedules. We're talking. By the way, did you get to see Aaron Seidel wrestle over the weekend?
I didn't. I saw the results.
He absolutely torched Tyler Knox. And he's in, and Dylan Campbell's out. And for people that don't know him, he wrestled Jax Forrest to a 1 takedown match in the state finals. So he might be like Jack's Light. Like you get 90% of it without all the hype. And Jax is not a kid that chases hype. So I'm not trying to say that. There's some kids out there that chase hype and do it. Jax is just super freaking good and wrestles a style that's, if you don't like how Jax wrestles, you might not like wrestling. But, like he just in a day where people are content to go to these overtimes and ride outs. Like, by the way, we were working on Jax against Masa Ono for Ohio Border Brawl. It's not going to work out for a variety of reasons. But I think you and I set the over-under on that match at like 29.5, right? Like well, Ono might win, but it might be 20-10. Like Jax is going to get his licks in. And that's what you like to watch if you love wrestling. So Lehigh's schedule, this is who they have left. Army, Morgan State, Penn, Bucknell, Arizona State. So that's no, he'll wrestle Manville. That does, yeah. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of electric wins. He beat Cornell, beat Iowa. He didn't wrestle against Penn State. Didn't wrestle at the national duels. So he's gonna be like, he's probably gonna be the 3 seed, maybe the 4. They might put Echemendia and Vega over him. The worst he'll be is the 5 if he goes undefeated, and he could be 2. It'd be fascinating to see where he goes, like you're saying. So anyway, Seidel's going to be a massive problem for people. In a couple other interesting points, Brendan McCrone is out for the year. So it looks like they're going to go Bazakis. But they wrestled Kilcarry against Volk in the duel Friday night, and Kilcarry beat Volk. And he was their 3rd stringer. He's now their 2nd stringer. But, these are first world problems, right, GT?
Yeah. I mean, we're not talking about I think that's the other thing is you got a great practice room. All those guys are getting better.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right, let's pull up the rankings quickly. Let me go here. We'll share the screen. Okay, so 125 this week. Volk drops a spot on the Kilcarry loss. Steve O'Pool and Lurkin there at 13 it's probably where he belongs. GT is 7-5 on the year. But if you said to me he can beat Provo, Moran, Volk's pretty good to be at 10, but Renteria and Strickenberger and get on the podium, I don't doubt any of that. Do you?
No, I think there's even when Steve-O was an All-American last year, he kind of had that same, I think it was just a really good matchup run for him on the backside of the bracket in order to get to where he needed to in that round of 12 to win that specific match to get into the All-American on the podium. But, I think this year he's going to get kind of seeded out. I think he's going to be a determination of where he finds himself in the NCAA bracket on where or what he has in front of him. Because if he gets the right matchups, he's a nightmare.
He can also move way up because he could win the Big 12s and be over Spratley and Strickenberger. So, by the way, speaking of sort of weird seeds here, Sheldon Seymour's undefeated. So he could end up being the 2 seed as well. Vincent Robinson has a hard time beating Eddie Ventresca. And so if he doesn't win the conference, he's going to be like a 4 or 5 seed, which is going to be just terrible for somebody. 33, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stayed the same. Rather, they dropped Seidel at 7, right above Tyler Knox, which makes a ton of sense because he beat him. Ayala moves up over Van D. Dom Serrano drops 4 spots after getting beat. Jax bumps 2 spots. Super deep weight, bro. When Jax is 12 here, Zan Few gets 11 who placed. Ayala's 9 who's made the finals twice. Van D's 10 who's placed. This weight is stupid good.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting weight class because I don't think that all of those guys, there's not enough room for them all on the stand. There's going to be a whole bunch of guys that are in the round of 12 that just aren't All-Americans.
Yeah. Well,
they're really, really, really good.
And Crookham's going to come through the EIWA. So he's going to, that's – well, as we get closer, we'll start projecting that. 41, Hardy drops. We dropped him below Echemendia, which probably makes sense. He dropped to 4. Luke Simcox moves up from 17 because he beat Ryan Jack. So Ryan Jack drops a couple spots. Nasir Bailey's lurking at 11, starting to look a little better. Trying to see where they have. I'm looking for Penn State here. Oh, there's Braden Davis at 12. Okay. And he's going to get bigger. Okay, Van Ness, this is an interesting way. Van Ness is undefeated. Jackson Joy is undefeated. Caleb Tyus is undefeated. Styles, then Biskins. Biskins is going to get a pretty high seed too. Like he'll be the 4 seed if everybody wins out because he'll be a conference champ and he'll have record over Styles. Styles will have head-to-head, I think, but everything else, and Frost can win the Big Tens, which is going to bump him too. But this is where it's really divided up as opposed to some of the other weights, which are really heavy. Cross Wasilewski's only got 1 loss. He's in the Ivy. This weight is complete chaos. Aiden Valencia is at 11. Swiderski's at 12. Your guy Lachlan McNeil's at 13. David Evans is at 14. I didn't like Ryder Block in the beginning of the year, but GT, like if I was taking a flyer on somebody for like 10 points in that fantasy contest, Ryder Block at 16 looks pretty good. Chance Lamer at 18 looks pretty good, right?
Yeah, like a lot of that Big Ten, they kind of get beat up by each other. Like in that conference, I think that there's also Big 12, depending upon the year, where you start getting, 6, 7 losses because you just run into the same guys all the time. I think Ryder Block is a kind of a victim of that when he gets into the season where, you're having maybe a couple matches that get away from you, and then you get maybe a really good Big Ten, and you're sitting there with like maybe 10 losses. Those are going to be hard outs. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that maybe have a very, very difficult win-loss record, very much like a Drake Ayala, where it's like, well, hey, he's got, close to maybe double-digit losses on the year, or like 5 to 10.
Yeah,
like that's a lot of losses. But when you look at that weight class, it makes sense.
He doesn't have enough quality wins, and his winning percentage, he's going to get killed by everybody. I think he's going to get seeded way lower than other people would guess, if you don't know the formula. Colin Guy, by the way, beat Valencia in that duel, the Virginia Tech duel. Okay, Brandon Cannon stays at 1. Really no change here. So, and again, you've got Cannon undefeated, Duke undefeated, Shapiro undefeated, Larkin is undefeated at 157, and he beat Waters. And you got Antrell Taylor, defending champ. Is it where Antrell Taylor's got a lot of juice here is he beat Rabideau head-to-head on the second one. So I think that's right. Am I saying that right? Let me make sure I got it right. Anyway.
That was one right before the holidays, correct?
Yeah, I'm going to pull it up real quick to make sure I'm not talking out of the side of my neck. But Rabideau is 9-1. And his only loss was the Antrell Taylor, yeah. So, and Rabideau's he beat Cardenas, and he beat Teague Travis, and he beat Arrington. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of highly ranked wins. They beat Jackson Arrington, but he's out for the year now. And he wrestled Victor Voinovich in the duel. He didn't wrestle J-Dub. So he's kind of got a soft schedule. It's not his fault, but the Zurban match for him will be really important because Zurban's got some really good wins. 65, no changes except Bryce Hepner lost to Will Denny. Dude, Will Denny is a true freshman doing really well. We have not talked about him all year. He's a true freshman out in Illinois, 12-2. Oh, and Zepeda is out for the year now, too. I thought they were going to put him at 57. That's why NC State, I don't think, can make the top 6. It's not because they don't have dudes or dudes keep getting hurt. So, Ty Whalen lost to Cesar Alvan, but he's also got some bad losses. But Oh, and by the way, did you see the Ryder Princeton duel? The headgear thing, headgear gate?
I didn't see it.
All right, so they win the duel, and then Princeton's winning the duel, and the guy takes his headgear off, and they team point him, and that makes it 19-19, and Ryder wins. Or maybe I have it the other way around. But anyway, the headgear cost him the duel. And I think it's a stupid rule. Okay, like when Bo Nickel pinned Miles Martin, like people forget he spiked his headgear and they took a point away. I'm a big fan of sportsmanship. But you just got to coach these guys, like, don't take your headgear off. Like Jaden James took his headgear off in the duel and slid it across the mat. Like, you got to tell guys, don't do that. Or change the rule. I mean, because these refs are going to call it, and it feels like it's a point of emphasis. 74, we talked really in depth about. 4, 5, 6 got rearranged. Jared Sima moves up a little bit. Lenny Pinto drops after losing a match. 84. Fishback falls behind Allred. We've talked about where Conway's going to be in here. Zach Ryder is 10-5, bro. Like, I don't know that's a guy that you picked to place. Like, he's, going to have to wrestle Mantanona, Saldano, Neidenbach, Isaac Dean. Jake Daly's another really good freshman. 14-2, having a great year. 97, no change this week. Top 12. Heavyweight. I think some of us thought, I'll say this, I thought Ferrari could get Feldman this time. I thought, we were there. He kind of hit his head on that takedown at NDI. But Feldman just beat him fair and square this time. Not that it wasn't fair the first time, but there's no controversy this time. He just won. And that makes it an interesting bracket. Like, I think Bastida's the best guy. I also think Trumbull's really freaking good. And you're a guy that spends a lot of time in the international space. And Trumbull, I know it's not at heavyweight, but made the Olympic trial finals against Snyder and didn't get teched. And that's fairly impressive. I don't know which side of the bracket you'd rather be on. I think I'd rather wrestle Trumbull than Bastida, but I don't really know. And the Ferrari-Feldman Big Ten final would probably decide who's the 3 seed, I would think. Team scores we talked about. So, GT, here's the tier here. I don't know if you can – there it is. You can see the top 10?
Yep.
So, tier 1 by itself, 2's by itself, 3 and 4 feel like they're by themselves. 5, 6 are very, very close. And then 7, 8, 9 are right there. And that's Cornell at 9. These ads keep popping up, so I apologize. Let's see if I can move this a little bit. There we go. So if you had to pick today, what are your top 4 teams in order?
I think Penn State, if Ohio State stays healthy, I think that they get runner-up. I think Iowa State, if they stay healthy, have the ability to get 3rd. Oklahoma State is the one team that I could see either being in 4th or 2nd. Because I think if they have the run that they can have with some of those highly touted freshmen, you could have Jax in the finals, you could have Vega in the finals, you could have Lockett in the finals. If Ryder wrestles the way that he's capable of, he can be a very, very high candidate for that. Rabadou was ranked really, really, really high at one point in time throughout the season. So, I mean, you're right there with a lot of those guys. And I think Oklahoma State has probably the most firepower to jump a different level. I think Iowa State is very much a proven team. They have a lot of guys that have done it, already been there. But they also have some really, really, they need guaranteed points out of, Elam and Bastida being that highly ranked. But I think those are my 4. I think Nebraska was a great story last year. I don't know if they have the same firepower that they did last year, where some of those guys could come out of the woodwork. I think probably they have probably I would hate to say this. I don't think that they have a single guy in the finals, but I think they could probably have 6 or 7 on the award stand between 5th and 8th.
It's funny. It's great minds. That's exactly what Mark was saying to me. He's like, because I just don't know if Nebraska's got a finalist.
I mean, the one guy that I could see doing it again is Taylor, because he's been there. You know, he's a good postseason wrestler, and he did it last year. I think Ferrari has the capability to do it. I think we just talked about it a little bit ago. Christian Minto is probably at that, right next to the tier, because he's going to be either a 3, 4, 5, 6 seed.
That's the guy I would pick low key. That nobody, like, he's not the first or second guy you name on their team that could make the finals. Just like you didn't pick Antrell to be a champ last year, right? Like, I mean, Ridge Levitt had been knocking on the door, but Trelly winning it, like, I think most of us thought Shapiro was going to beat him, and he just bodied him up. Like, it wasn't really close. So, I mean, it's and you got to have finalists. I mean, that's just kind of how the world works, So,
well, that's gonna be determining upon your top 10 programs. Now, I think there's one team that is going to be very interesting to watch that could have a lot of firepower is Virginia Tech, that could get up there, because Ventresca could be a finalist. He could be a champ. That Seidel kid making a run, he could do some big things. But I think if they're not a top 10 team this year,
yes,
they are vying for a trophy next year with a lot of freshman firepower. And Caleb Henson's back. There's some firepower there with those guys.
Well, right now their lineup is Ventresca, Seidel, Crook, Guy, Miller, Burton, DeCiante, Bullock, Sasso, Mullen. But like next year could be Ventresca, Seidel, 41 could be Bassett, or 49, or 49's Henson. But they could bump them both and get Dylan Campbell in at 41, or Noah Ninninger or Colin Guy can go 57. Melvin Miller, they're talking about pulling him out and going 65. Jimmy Mullen's going to be much higher ranked at heavyweight with all these guys graduating. But their first 6, 7 guys, Ryan Burton's really good. I mean, we got to get all those dudes in the lineup. But they got some serious firepower the first 6 weights. To your point.
Oh, and once again, there's a thing called the transfer portal that can happen at any given time. So,
yeah, that is the thing that, and you can almost, it's not that hard to see who would go on who is going to get targeted in the portal. It's kids that are from schools that don't have a lot of money that have eligibility left. I mean, like I'll pick a kid who can't go in the portal because he's a senior, but like Caleb Tyus from SIU Edwardsville, right? Like if he was a junior, ranked 3rd in the country, people be calling him right now. We can talk about how good or bad that is for wrestling, but I mean, anyway. All right. So Friday we have Virginia Tech at NC State, which usually decides the ACC, Minnesota at Iowa, Nebraska at Penn State. Saturday's Arizona State at Cornell GT. So maybe we'll see Larkin, Shapiro. Sunday, Iowa State, Oklahoma State. So I don't know. Maybe we'll do an emergency Sunday podcast if we have to. But maybe Thursday or Friday, get one out there. Be a bunch of duels to pick this weekend. I know you've got Iowa State probably 30-0. No, but I mean, I bet you have Iowa State 16-15. I'm going to just guess that now.
We're just going to go, let's just go right down the middle. Just go 5-5, 15-15. Comes down to criteria.
Most points. Yeah, exactly. So anyway, I want to thank the guys at the ACC Network and UVA for letting me do their duel. And next weekend, GT, I'll actually be out there for UVA v Tech. So excited about that.
Love it.
Right, anything else before we let the folks get back to their day?
No, just excited about upcoming wrestling opportunities. Going to be a great dual weekend. I believe the Iowa State, Oklahoma State is going to be on ESPN Plus, so that'll be really cool to see on Sunday.
Yeah.
Once again, continue to venture out. I believe on Friday as well, Big Ten action, Iowa versus Minnesota, I believe, in Carver.
Iowa, Minnesota. Yes. Minnesota's at Iowa on Friday night. Friday evening. The late duel's Nebraska at Penn State.
That will be some great matchups. Be sure to tune in on that.
Let me pull that up real quick. We'll just sort of wet the beaks. Nebraska and Penn State. So Blaze Van D, Braden Davis Hardy, Van Ness Lamer, Duke Antrell, great matchup. Messenbrink, Araujo, Levi Haynes, Minto. They've never wrestled, I don't think. So that'll be interesting to see. Welsh, Allred, Barr, McDaniel, Mirasola, Ferrari. Nebraska's favored in 2 matches. They're favored at 41. They're favored at heavyweight. I mean, if you're getting really, really greedy for them, there's a chance they could win. Well, there's more than a chance they could win 57. He's a defending champ. And maybe Minto. I think if you're a massive Nebraska homer, it's 6-4 Penn State. And if you're a Penn State fan, I think it's 8-2 or 9-1. Like, Mirasola looks really good right now. The main thing is, can he get away from Ferrari? Because he's actually mobile enough to stop that double. Not by power, but by just keep moving his feet and not staying on the tracks in front of him. So we'll see if we can get Mark off the train on Thursday, make a pick. Where's Grandview at this weekend?
We will be at the Loris Open, and then we have a duel on Thursday.
All right. Well, for Grant Turner, I'm David Mirikitani. We appreciate you guys watching and subscribing. Please tell your friends. Talk to you soon.